WrestleDope here on YouTube, and indeed today we have a very special guest. It is the first ever WWE Undisputed Champion, a lead singer of Fozzy, and indeed a best-selling author, Chris Jericho. You're very welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, if you're looking for a WrestleDope, you've met the biggest dope in wrestling right here. It's perfect. It's a match made in heaven.
Right, excellent. Now, indeed, The Lion's Tale was your last book in 2007, and indeed, coming on February 15th, you are going to be releasing a brand new book. Now, already there are really big selling figures for this, and it's in fact doing very well on Amazon, and it's not even out yet. You must be very happy with it so far.
Yeah, the buzz has been great, and the fact that it was #1 on Amazon 3 weeks before it was released was pretty cool news for sure. So yeah, I got a huge book tour coming up, and I think it actually comes out in the UK on February 17th, so it's around the same time. So you know, A Lion's Tale did really well, and I think people really enjoyed it and really enjoyed my writing style. So you're going to get more of the same with Undisputed, and I think that's the reason why the book is doing so well before it's even released. There's such a huge buzz because people have been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, we've heard that Undisputed kind of picks up at the beginning of your WWE career. A lot of stuff that was slightly covered in A Lion's Tale, but it kind of goes more in depth this time around. Can you tell us some of the kind of highlights for you and things that you enjoyed kind of writing about this time?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you said isn't really the case. It's just a continuation of A Lion's Tale. So, A Lion's Tale ended just as I got to the WWE in 1999, just as the clock had struck zero for my big debut, and this picks up right where that left off as I walked to the curtain to go to the ring to have the confrontation with The Rock, and just continues on from there. So, I mean, it goes from 2000, or actually 1999, when I arrived in the WWE, and then it goes all the way till 2007 when I returned to the WWE after being gone for a couple of years. So, yeah, just everything that I went through. I mean, when I first got to the WWE, I mean, it's been my dream for years and years and years to get there, and I worked my whole career to make it there. But by the time I did get there, it wasn't a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. It was a whole new kind of rite of passage that I had to go through to learn what I was doing. You know, I knew Japanese style and I knew Mexican style, but the whole WWE style was completely foreign to me, and I knew nothing really about it. And you know, and I was taught in no uncertain terms very quickly that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So you know, kind of goes through that whole time right from the start, and it's kind of how I developed in the WWE and how I got to the level that I did. But it wasn't easy, and it took a long time.
Yeah, with a book like that that's filled with stories and anecdotes, do you keep a diary on the road? Do you sort of note these things as they happen and then they end up in the book? Or how does the book actually come together?
Well, I've been blessed with a really, really good memory. So what I did on both of these books was I just sat down with a piece of paper and just said, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to write down, 100 stories that I want to talk about from the WWE. And then I just start writing down ideas of, okay, well, this happened, that happened, this is interesting, that was interesting. And then, like, same for Fozzy, because this book isn't exclusively a wrestling book. It's just as much of a rock and roll book, detailing the rise of Fozzy and all the stuff we went through to get that off the ground. So I do the same for that. And then there's a big section on my experiences in Hollywood, so I do the same in that. So certain things jump out, obviously, right off the bat, especially for the second book, because I was always intending to do a second book. So, as things were happening, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that, because things had already happened by the time I wrote my first book. But I'm already thinking about a third book, is what I'm saying. So when interesting things happen, I'll just kind of tag it in my mind and go, this will be good for the next book. So I just basically just sit there and think and just write it all down. And the only diary or log that I keep is of all the matches I've had in my career. I've written them all down. So I just went back through that and just kind of looked through those matches and kind of see if anything pops in my head, match-wise or memory-wise or story-wise, kind of triggers as to what I'm going to be writing about. And then I just kind of start from there and put it all together and shake it up and see what sticks and what needs to be edited and what needs to be expanded upon, and just kind of go that route.
Yeah, it seems an insight into the workings of Fozzy and that whole different side, I suppose, to that we don't really see too much of. I mean, I think a lot of people would be familiar with the Chris Jericho of WWE and WCW fame. Talking about Fozzy, the Chasing the Grail album, both of us are big fans of, and we actually went to see the Let the Madness Begin tour at the end of last year, and had a ball, I think, from start to finish. It was absolutely fantastic, and we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the tour itself. And it was actually Dublin, Ireland was the show we made it to, and yeah, we had an absolute ball, I think, from the get-go. Yeah,
that was a great gig. I think, was that the Button Factory, or?
That's right, yeah.
Button Factory, yeah, I remember that night. That was a great gig, and I mean, Ireland has been a great country for us. We've done probably about half a dozen gigs in Ireland over the years, and they've all been great. They've all had great crowds, and you know, and it's one of those things. That's why I think it's very interesting for me to write about the band, because you know, we've been doing this for 11 years now, and you know, I've been a musician since I was 14 years old, so this is part of who I am just as much as the wrestling side. It's just that the wrestling side kind of took off first, but I think it would be interesting for people to read the Fozzy stories, just to know just how much we've done with the band, because
sure.
I don't think they really, if people aren't Fozzy fans and just know Jericho through wrestling, they'll know it's my band, but when they read this, they'll realize it's not just some hobby that we do once in a while. I mean, we've blood, sweat, and tears for it, and it's very interesting too, because it's got a lot of parody to A Lion's Tale, in that here is the rise of Jericho in wrestling, which is what Lion's Tale dealt with. And then in an Undisputed, you get to see the rise of Jericho in music. And there very much is a lot of comparisons and similarities between the two. So even though I was at the top of the ladder in wrestling, I was still going through the same, you know, once again, the rite of passage and paying my dues musically with Fozzy. So you'll see the dichotomy of that, how this guy is, you know, on top of the world, undisputed champion, you know, done all this great stuff in wrestling, and yet is still traveling in a, you know, broken down little van through, you know, the countryside of Ireland to build up the band, and then see how the band became more successful. So I've been very fortunate that I've been blessed in so many ways, and I had two dreams when I was a kid, and both of them came true to you know, varying degrees of success, but both very successful. So, I mean, I think that's very interesting to be able to write about that.
Indeed. Now, the crowd reaction on that night was absolutely through the roof. They really loved it, and everyone we spoke to, you know, were wondering when you'd be back. And you know, you mentioned that it might not be as long this time, that you'd perhaps be back sooner. I know a lot of fans here certainly would like that to be sooner rather than later. But regarding the, you know, the difference between, say, being on stage with Fozzy and being in the ring, is there any difference, or is it pretty much the sort of same thing?
Well, there's some differences. I mean, you know, just the fact that, you know, they're both very physical forms of entertainment. I know, you know, right off the bat, people go, well, you don't have to take bumps on stage. Well, you don't, but it's still very, very physically taxing, because we don't mess around. I mean, you saw us on stage. It's very energetic. There's a lot of jumping. There's a lot of running. There's a lot of, you know, kind of going above and beyond to, you know, to really get into it and make it happen. That's just kind of part of who we are as a band. We've always been that way, and we take great pride in it. I mean, the similarities are the fact that you use a lot of the same tricks in both, because you're basically leading the crowd. You're a party host, like I always say, but you know, it's up to us to make sure that everyone has a great time, and we do that. We go out of our way to make sure that people have a great time with Fozzy, and I do the same with wrestling. You know, I want people to buy a ticket the next time I come to town, whether it's wrestling-wise or whether it's musically. So those are a lot of similarities. I mean, the differences are it's more of a team in the band. I mean, it's more of a gang mentality. In wrestling, you're kind of on your own. It's up to you to make it happen. And with Fozzy, I mean, you got a gang of guys, especially with me and Rich, who've been together for probably been with Rich longer than I've been married. You know, so it's like to see the band and the partnership kind of taken off. I mean, there really is a sense of brotherhood, especially with the other guys in the band. They've all been with us, you know, for 10 years. In different ways, shapes, or forms too. I mean, Frank's been with us since 1999 as well, on and off. So, you know, it really is a sense of brotherhood. There really is a gang mentality. Whereas the WWE, you go out there on your own, and some days I'm working with John Cena, and other days I'm working with Orton, and other days I'm working with Morrison, or whatever it may be. So, even though it's more of a big family environment, you know, you travel pretty much by yourself or with just your traveling partners. With Fozzy, we're always together, on the bus together. We do the shows together. We eat together, you know. And so, I mean, there's pros and cons to both, and I love both. But right now, I mean, with Fozzy, you know, taking off the way that we are, I mean, you gotta ride the wave as it's going. And like I said, wrestling was always my thing, but if you would have asked me when I was, you know, 18 years old which one I'd rather do, I probably would have said be in a rock and roll band. It's just that wrestling was the one that kind of took off first, and now that the band has taken off, I want to run with it for as long and as hard as we can.
Yeah, how fantastic it must be to kind of have achieved both in a sense in, you know, quite a short space of time when you think about it. Getting back to Fozzy for a sec, 4 albums down at the moment. Will we see a 5th one? Is there a 5th one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We just had a big conference call yesterday to discuss the plans for it, and yeah, we're not waiting. I mean, All That Remains came out in 2005. Chasing the Grail was 2010. We kind of went a little bit dormant for a while there, but that's not going to happen again. I mean, I've already written all the lyrics for the next record, and Rich is already coming up with the riffs and the melodies for it. So our plan is to have it out basically a year from now, because we got a big summer planned. We're going to do quite a few festivals in July over in Europe and over in the UK, and
that'd be great.
So we're kind of planning on that, and then we're going to kind of do the record a little bit before that and a little bit after that, and have it all ready to go, and hopefully, like I said, early 2012.
Can I ask about the writing process when it comes to putting stuff together? Does Rich, will say, come up with the riffs and then you come up with your melodies, or how do you kind of collaborate to make a final?
Well, that's a good question, because the first 3 records, it was a real kind of a patchwork type thing. Rich would come up with most of the stuff, and then I would kind of take the scratch lyrics that he had written and kind of rewrite them and you know, add certain things here and there. But the way it's always been is Rich writes all of the music and the medleys.
Sure.
Sorry, the melodies, and then you know, I would come up with lyrics here and there. But the reason why Chasing the Grail was such a great record, and why it really took off, was it was the first time that Rich and I had ever really totally collaborated, in that I gave him all the lyrics that I had written, and he took my lyrics and wrote his songs off of that. And it really worked, because it gave him inspiration and gave him a vibe, and I had a vibe of what I was thinking when I wrote the lyrics, and he had a vibe for what he came up with, and then we kind of bantered back and forth and came up with, you know, 12 songs that really fit what we were working towards. The same thing for this record. I've sent him 11 sets of lyrics, and I know you know, it's the same as I did last time, and he'll use some, and he'll change some, and he'll add some of his own stuff, and then I'll get it back, and I'll change a few things, or whatever it may be. And that's I mean, it really is an awesome collaborating songwriting process, and that's why Grail worked out so well, and that's why I think this 5th record will be even better than Grail was, because we've really got the system down pat now.
Certainly looking forward to that one, and yes, the tour and everything was great, and looking forward to what you come up with next. But regarding the actual record industry and the fact that, well, you are a worldwide star with your time in the wrestling business, did that open doors for you guys in terms of you know, being able to get your music out there?
Well, it opened some doors and closed other ones. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. A lot of people thought it was cool that Jericho had a band, and just many people didn't listen to Fozzy because I'm a wrestler, you know, and that became the gimmick of the band. Oh, it's the wrestler's band, and we never did anything wrestling-wise on stage. It's not like we, you know, performed in a ring and gave each other body slams and sang songs about battle royals. I mean, we've never done that. It's two separate entities, and people have to realize that, and they have. And that's one thing we've really turned the corner over the last 3 or 4 years. And that, I mean, there's always going to be people that consider this the wrestling band and are going to think that it's not good because I'm the singer. But I've found that the only people who don't like Fozzy are the people that have never heard the band, and that's funny. But everyone that's checked this out realizes that this is the real deal. It's a great rock and roll band with great songs and great musicians, and that Jericho can actually sing a pretty good song. And that's important to me because, like I said, we just kept going. We didn't care. It's like we were very thick-skinned when we started in 1999, and it's like, well, you don't like us, let's try this, and let's do that, and let's do this. And the fact that, like, it's 2011 and these guys are still here, maybe I better check out one of their songs. It's like, man, what have I been missing all this time? And we like that. So I think, you know, every band has some kind of a gimmick, quote unquote, that gets their foot in the door. You know, Kiss had makeup, and you know, Megadeth has the guy that got kicked out of Metallica. Like, there's always something to a band. And if Fozzy is the band that has the wrestler as a singer, that's fine. But as soon as people come in and see the band or hear our music, they don't care anymore. I could be a butcher, baker, or candlestick maker. All that matters is that the music is good.
Yeah, and the proof is there with the reviews, and of course the reaction to the live dates and the tours have been a huge success. So all in all, yeah, I mean, it's terrific.
Absolutely. Now, we do have 1 or 2 questions just from viewers who've recorded videos, and we're going to try and play that one out for you now. If the audio isn't good on this, I can certainly repeat the question.
Sure.
But first of all, it is Larry from New Brunswick, so we'll try and play this out, and as I say, I'll let you know if you can't quite hear it.
Hi, Chris. I'm Larry, or otherwise known as Drifter on WrestleDope, from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. A couple of questions for you. I'm new to Fozzy, so as a new fan, what 2 or 3 songs would you recommend, your personal favorites that I definitely check out? And 2, I know you're a big Iron Maiden fan, as am I, and I know that you've probably done some covers, so my question there would be, what are your favorite covers?
The first part of the question, I'd say if you like Maiden, I'd go for Under Blackened Skies, Martyr No More, and Enemy. Those are probably the 3 that you might want to check out right off the bat, if those are the bands that you're into. And if you can check out Wormwood, that's the song that's like 14 minutes long. It's totally a Maiden-esque type deal as well. And the second part of his question is, I didn't quite catch the end of it. He said talked about Maiden, and then did he ask me what my favorite Maiden songs were, or my favorite album covers, or what did he say?
Yeah, covers, actually. Which covers would be your favorite?
My favorite Iron Maiden album covers?
Indeed. Okay,
well, I think I always love Seventh Son of the Seventh Son cover because of the colors on it. I think are great. I loved Somewhere in Time because of all the details that was on. There's actually a website that has all of the little inside Maiden jokes that are on the album cover. I think there's like 40 or 50 like song titles and things that relate to the Maiden universe on that. And then Power Slave's a great cover as well with the giant Eddie Sphinx. I think those are my 3 favorites probably.
That's cool. Speaking of the Maiden universe, let's just talk a little bit about the WWE universe. Are you...
Look at that, master segue. What a segue.
I'm a pro. Future stars in the business. We want to talk about people who have kind of moved from, I suppose, farm territory, FCW, up onto the main roster, and people who are kind of... have made an impression on you, kind of a lasting impression, and going forward maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, guys who you think will still be, I suppose, sticking around and have made a good name for themselves?
Well, I'm pretty good at picking up the guys, and I knew Wade Barrett was going to be a big star from the first day that I met him, just from his size and his presence and his voice. He needs to work on his match quality a little bit more, but other than that, he's going to be a huge star for many years to come. I was the same with Sheamus. I thought very early on, I mean, obviously it was a no-brainer with his size and stuff, but his look and his attitude and his viciousness in the ring. Miz, I knew was going to be big. which is maybe about a year ago. As much as I busted his balls, I knew he had what it took. Morrison the same. He just needs to work on his connecting with the fans a little bit more, and that doesn't necessarily mean interview-wise. I mean, there's other ways to do it, and I think he is doing that, and he's getting the fans' trust as a guy who's going to go above and beyond to put on a great match, and that goes a long way. So, and I'm a big fan of Jack Swagger. I think they're kind of missing the boat with him a bit, but it'll come around. Kofi's got a lot of natural fire, which people really like, and that goes a long way. It's not fake. He just needs somebody to guide him through a little bit match-wise, but I think he's pretty much found his niche right now. He needs a little bit more promo time, but I think those are the guys off the top of my head that I think are really gonna. And Alberto Del Rio, obviously. It's funny because I used to work. I sound like an old timer, but I used to work with his dad all the time in Mexico. So the moment I met him, I liked him because his dad's a great guy.
Sure.
So and he's got all the tools as well. I haven't really seen a lot of his matches, so I don't know match-wise if he's up to snuff yet. But he just needs to work with great workers, as everybody. That's how you learn to have great matches, is by working with great workers. So those are the guys that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head.
Absolutely. Now, of course, during your last run, you had a very memorable feud with Shawn Michaels, and indeed a lot of positive feedback about that all over the internet. It really is probably the most memorable thing for me in the last few years. Your thoughts on Shawn going into the Hall of Fame this year?
Well, yeah, that angle was a classic, and I don't mind saying it. I'll call myself out in the car, but if I thought something sucked, but I think that was one of the best angles ever in WWE history. And it's funny because Jack Lanza, who's in his 70s and been in wrestling forever, said that. He said that's the best angle we've ever had. So it was so intricate, and there's so many twists and turns. And I always thought they should have put out a DVD of just that angle from beginning to end, every promo, every match that they had. But, it'd kind of be a textbook and how to have a great angle. But, I mean, yeah, Shawn Michaels is the Hall of Fame. End of story. I mean, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, more than anybody in the history of the business. I think he's the greatest performer of all time. He's my all-time favorite opponent. And, he needs to be in there, and it's good that he's going in.
Yeah, it's good stuff for Shawn, I think, this year. And we're both very happy to see him inducted. I think he's more than deserving when it comes to the Hall of Fame. Before the Hall of Fame, of course, we have the Royal Rumble. And have you any picks or any thoughts on who you think could potentially take it this year?
I think Del Rio's the best choice, to be honest with you. It seems like SmackDown's always the afterthought show, and it'd be good if he wins it because it kind of puts the emphasis on that SmackDown World Title, and I think that's the best match they have in the pipeline is Edge versus Del Rio for the championship.
Now, having been all over the world wrestling-wise, Japan, Mexico, the US, the big companies there, was there a favourite territory of yours? Where did you enjoy working the most?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that my last 3 years in the WWE was my favorite time in the business. I think that was the best work I'd done. I had the best relationship with Vince, and had the most influence that I ever had. But other than working in the States and Canada with the WWE, I have to say that Japan's always been my favorite place. Wrestling-wise and even music-wise, I'm really, really looking forward to the day when I get to take Fozzy to Japan because we've never been there before. But, it's just a whole different world over there, respect-wise and attitude-wise. And I just find I become a different performer when I'm in Japan, as you should, because it's a different style. But I always loved it there. And I think I've been there, well, it's over 40 times now, maybe 45 times or something like that. But it really is my second home wrestling-wise for sure.
Another question regarding the wrestling side of things. With the, I suppose, WWE being in the kind of PG environment at the moment, where do you see, or where would you like to see the business go within the next 5 or 10 years? Do you think they need to adjust or keep on going on the same kind of path that they have been kind of threading for the last 3 to 5 years?
Well, just, I'm always the guy that looks forward to the future. I never look at the past for anything. And when I was a kid, wrestling was PG. The cartoon era of the WWE and Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling and all that sort of stuff. And then, and I loved it then. And then when the Attitude Era came in '97 or whatever, I rode that wave. I mean, I pushed the envelope just as much as everybody else did, especially with the stuff that I used to say to Stephanie. I mean, you could never say that on TV today. But then when it changed back to PG, I understand the reasons for it. I don't miss the Attitude Era at all. I mean, it was the blood aspect of it was always something I thought was an added dimension, but does it really matter? I mean, now people don't even really know. They've forgotten about the blood and all that sort of stuff. So I have no problems with the PG, and I think Vince was smart to do that. And I guess you got to look at where you're at. If in like 2 years the ratings are exactly the same and the pay-per-view buy rates are exactly the same, then maybe he needs to look at changing it back to a little bit more of a I don't even know if adult oriented is the right word, but a little bit more of an edge, I guess you'd say. But Vince is smart. He plays it the way he sees fit, and he's usually right. I mean, he is a genius in a lot of ways, and in most every way. I mean, there's a few mistakes that he makes, but everyone makes mistakes sometimes. So yeah, Vince is a genius, and whatever he comes up with, he's usually smart and right about. And what happens over the next 10 years when Vince starts relinquishing control, if he does, that's going to be an interesting time, because I wonder how the company will be without Vince at the head of it.
Yeah, it is an interesting time, I think, for the business, but I think they've still kind of maintained the key factor in that, I suppose, would be the entertainment side, and still being creative and funny, I think, at the end of the day. And if they can kind of maintain that going forward, I think people will, still enjoy the product.
Well, of course. I mean, yeah, of course they're still going to enjoy the product. The wrestling is going to be around forever. I mean, it's kind of woven itself into the pulp culture fabric of the world at this point. So, and that's another thing too. People say it's a big transition period with a lot of young guys and all that stuff. Well, they had to do it. I mean, guys can't last forever in the business, can't last forever in anything, and you guys got to come up and take charge. And if it's a little bit of a transition period right now, where some buy rates are down and some attendances are down, that's how you build stars. So, I think it's a smart move. I think it's a necessary move.
Indeed. At this stage, you've probably been with all the greats in the ring. Is there anyone that you would perhaps like to work a feud with that you haven't yet?
Nobody. Like you said, I have worked with everybody, and the big omission up until last year was Undertaker, but I got to work some great matches with him. Fantasy-wise, I mean, I never got to work with Bret Hart. Obviously, health-wise, he couldn't do that. I never got to work with Owen Hart. He passed away before I got to the WWE. So those are probably the two guys on my list that I never worked a program with. Guys that are in the company now, I mean, just give me anybody. I don't care. I think there's good in everybody that's there, else they wouldn't be there. And like I said, most of those guys, the thing they need the most is just opportunity to work with somebody who really knows what he's doing. And I don't feel egotistical in saying I know exactly what I'm doing. I know how to get guys over. I know how to make guys look better, and I know how to teach guys that. So, it's kind of where I stand on that.
Recently a lot of speculation on the internet and all over regarding Randy Savage and about how he sort of signed some deals now and maybe getting a bit more involved with the company. Of course, it is a bit of a dream for a lot of fans to see him return. Do you think that's a possibility at all?
I'm sure everything's a possibility. I mean, everybody else has returned, so whatever issues Vince and Savage have, I hope they work them out, because Randy is one of the greatest of all time, and he's one of my all-time favorites, and he deserves that. Any kind of Hall of Fame or whatever capacity he wants to be involved. I think he deserves it, because much like Bret, I think until Bret came back to the WWE, his career always kind of had that, that purgatory where he deserved that closure, and I'm glad that he got it. I'm glad that the fans got it, and I hope to get that with Savage too.
Your thoughts? I'd be curious to hear on the faction side of things in the business these days between both WWE, TNA. There seems to be a lot of separate factions. You have the Nexus, we have the Core over in TNA. You've got Immortal and stuff. Do you think it's beneficial to have all these kind of factions running at once?
It was funny. I texted Sheamus the other day, and I was like, I heard the Cores are in SmackDown. That's my favorite Celtic folk rock band. Yeah, I mean, I thought the Nexus invasion last year was great. I think it was a genius idea, and I think it was awesome. He took 8 or 7 or whatever it was unknown guys, and then made them into the hottest heels in the company, and I thought that worked awesome. Like anything else, once it gets played out, I think the two factions are fine. I don't think they'll have. I don't think they'll have the heat that the original Nexus had, especially the one on SmackDown. I don't think they're trying to get the heat. But, once again, I've been a big Barrett supporter, and I think Otunga's a good talker. But the other guys are still they haven't really shown me much. I mean, and Punk's great. He's a genius, too. So whatever he touches is going to turn to gold, so that'll get over. But, now we're kind of blowing down the fact we still got a bunch of green guys that I think they're kind of settled in their roles in Nexus, and they're complacent about it. And, it is what it is at this point.
Sure.
Another viewer question we have for you. This is from Michelle.
Hey Chris Jericho, it's Michelle, and my question for you is, what is your favorite on-road memory with the WWE?
Yeah, I have about 1,000 of them, and you can read them all in A Lion's Tale and Undisputed.
Absolutely. If I was to ask one specifically, one I would always wanted to know, do you remember, well, of course you would, the famous Dairy Queen incident with Jim Cornette?
Yeah, that kind of really took on a life of its own just because it was filmed, I mean, it was kind of a funny night, and, everyone knows the story. You can see the video of it, but it just showed that Jim was just a nut, I mean, he's a crazy type of guy, and he just got set off over the fact that we placed a really big order, and the people thought we were joking. We had to wait in line, and by the time we got up to the front of the line, they thought we were joking, didn't have it made, and he flipped out and tried to get out of the car and squeeze through the window of the, whatever you call it, the takeout window. And but what I had forgotten that Lance reminded me is the reason why they thought that the order wasn't real is because I asked for just a banana. They had like banana splits, and I didn't want any ice cream or any of the other stuff. I just wanted a banana.
Yeah.
And because I said that, they thought that the whole order was a joke. And there was 10 or 12 burgers and French fries and all this other stuff. And because I asked for just a banana, they didn't believe us, so that's kind of what set the whole thing off, which I had forgotten about, and I didn't write that in Lion's Tale because I forgot that integral detail. So
it's kind of the big swerve, I think, that they didn't expect, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Who orders just a banana, right? But that's when you're on the road. It's like, I wanted a freaking banana, and I need to eat a banana. End of story.
Very good. So with all the talk of course, the new book Undisputed, we've covered Fozzy and the WWE stuff. Going forward for yourself, do you see yourself ever following in the footsteps of, we'll say, Steve Austin, The Rock, going into the kind of the Hollywood, the acting side of things? Would you like to, participate in the kind of the big budget movies?
Yeah, I mean, I love acting, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do probably a dozen different parts over the years. I never really had a big, that big breakout role yet, and I'd like to do more acting for sure. It's, it's what I've done since I was 19 years old. I mean, I play a character every single night I went into the ring, and so yeah, I'd love to continue doing more acting, and I think there's definitely some more stuff in the pipeline. I just never really had time. I mean, I had to turn down a lot of stuff over the years because, when you work for the WWE, you don't have time to go to a set for 3 weeks and film or whatever it may be. And, it's hard to get time off for that stuff unless it's through the WWE doing one of their movies.
Sure.
So I think now that I kind of have some more time in my hands, there's definitely some more stuff coming up already that is in the pipeline. So I think you'll see me doing more of that stuff because I like doing it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So I want to continue doing more of it.
Fantastic. So the book Undisputed is going to be out February 15th in the US and a few days later here in Europe. Certainly one that I think everyone's going to want to pick up, and looking forward to reading that one myself. Chris, it's been fantastic to speak to you today, and indeed thank you very much for coming on here. We appreciate your time very much.
All right, man. Hope to be back in the UK and back in Ireland soon. It's a great country. There's great wrestling fans, great rock and roll fans, and most importantly to me, great Chris Jericho fans. So I appreciate it.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks again, Chris, for joining us on Wrestle Dope, and we appreciate you giving your time today.
Cheers, mate.